Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Plenty of new content coming your way. Andrew Musgrove here, and as you might be able to tell, I'm outside of St James's Park. That's because today some huge news confirmed away from the pitch, and that's that safe standing will be introduced at St James's Park from next season, the 2023-24 campaign. And the area in which it'll take part in first is this area right behind me, the southeast corner, known to many as the Strawberry Corner. Probably for obvious reasons, because behind me there is the strawberry. So there's a Strawberry Corner. Now, fans, 4,000 of you, more than 4,000 of you actually, were surveyed by the club and asked whether you'd be in favour of safe standing. 75% said you would be, and 70% said that this area here would be the ideal place to have it. And I think it is the ideal place to have it because St James's Park as a whole is a fantastic stadium. The atmosphere is brilliant. The fan base pulling Newcastle United players over the line when they most need it. We saw it in the Wolves game. We've seen it this season in abundance. And I think it's in large part because of this section of the ground. Now, I don't want to offend anyone when I say that this section for me is probably the best section of St James's Park. Always singing, always chanting, and from next season, always standing. And I think it's going to boost the atmosphere really, really well. I think, especially those European nights as well, it's going to be just a fantastic move by the club. If you sit here in this section currently, you should have had an email to ask you whether you want to opt in or opt out. The assumption is if you opt out, you'll be placed elsewhere in the stadium. If you opt in, you'll get the chance to take part in this trial. And the other great thing about this is, like I say, more than 4,000 fans were surveyed, were asked by the club for their opinion. Under the old regime, would that have happened? Probably not. And I think it's just another kind of tip of the hat to the importance of fan opinion to the club's owners. The big decisions, and make no bones about it, this is a huge decision. This isn't going to be something that can just be done overnight, because you're going to have safety issues. You're going to have the right kind of equipment in place for fans to be able to stand. And then, of course, the fans who want to move, they're going to have to be placed elsewhere. There's going to be loads of logistics that the club have to consider, have to actually do to make this a reality. It's going to cost them. You would assume a few more extra stewards and all that. It's not going to be a cheap option, I would assume. But they wanted to get it done because they understand the benefit of it. They understand the huge boost it could bring to St James's Park. And they understand as well it's something that's been on the agenda of Newcastle fans for many, many a year. But the fact that fans have been asked about it is such a big thing. To other supporters of other clubs, you might be like, what? So what? Your club's asked your opinion. But under Mike Ashley, that just wouldn't have happened, and it's great to see. It really is great to see. And you assume that any other big decisions that come Newcastle United's way, and there will be some in the seasons to come, whether it be the stadium potentially being sponsored by a big company, you would like to think Newcastle fans will be consulted on it. We saw last week the release of the fan engagement document, which listed a few heritage assets that included the club crest and the club colours. No one's saying that's on the table to be discussed, but should it happen somewhere down the line, nothing would be decided on without the fans say, and that's so important. And for all the money that's been spent on the pitch, bringing in some massive players, the likes of Kieran Trippier, Bruno Guimaraes, and Alexander Isak, I think fans would probably agree that it's the little wins which are still meaning the most. Cleaning the windows, last year, and just being asked their opinion, and that just goes to show you how bad it had got under the last regime. And we don't want to keep, harking back to the dark days of Mike Ashley. But when decisions like this are taken, I think it's really important to just highlight how far the club have come in terms of really, I think, appreciating the fans. That's probably what I'm getting at. The ownership now appreciate the fans. They understand that this club means more to them than many, many things. For many, it might mean more than family. I don't know about that, but Newcastle United is their life, and these kind of decisions, need to be discussed with fans. And it's great to see that the decision comes after a big survey. The reaction on social media has been pretty overwhelming in favour of it. A few people kind of worried about having to move seats because they don't want to opt in, but I think as a whole, yeah, the reaction's been pretty favourable. I'm certainly a big fan of what's happened here today. So let's have a walk around the stadium, because I know you guys who maybe don't live on Tyneside, or those that even do, who just can't get up to the ground that often, like to have a little bit of a walk around the ground. So what we'll do is we'll go around the ground and we'll discuss a few points about the stadium, some of the points about Newcastle United that are actually in the news at the moment. Now, I know off the back of today's announcement about safe standing, a lot of people have just said, well, this is just going to be the beginning. St James's Park is hopefully going to go under a massive revamp in the years to come. Expansion is often the word talked about. Now, we know that the club have bought back the lands behind the Gallagher, which is great news. Brought back the Strawberry Place lands. What that means in terms of expansion is on the agenda of people a lot more qualified and cleverer than me, but you would assume buying back that land will mean at some point an expansion of the stadium, because we know the demand is absolutely overwhelming, isn't it? Now, we're here at the East Stand, and this has often been a bone of contention for many fans about, well, could we not expand the East Stand? And the question is always answered by this here. No, because here is Leazer's Terrace, which is a graded building, which means it's a protected building. And a lot of people often say, well, can't we knock it down brick by brick and put it elsewhere? My opinion, this is part of Newcastle's culture. We don't want to be expanding the stadium if it means losing some of this culture. That's not what Newcastle United is about. Expanding the stadium is great for the city, but losing culture would not be very good. But with the land being bought by the Gallagher, it's not too big of an issue anymore. And actually, do you know what? Obviously, you would love to see extra seats here at St James's Park, but I love this part of the ground. I really love this part of the ground. This bit here, I don't know, there's something about it. I don't know. I really do like the way that this looks. I do a bit of photography in my time, and I love taking photographs of this section of the ground. So I don't know if I'd want to lose that, really. But like I say, with the Gallagher, the land behind the Gallagher being bought, you would probably say that's where the expansion's going to come. Now, of course, we haven't been here at St James's Park for a wee while. We'll be back on Sunday when Newcastle welcome Manchester United in the race for the top four. What a huge game that is. Newcastle United have got 2 games in hand on Spurs in 4th, but they're not too far behind Manchester United. And if they beat Manchester United, they'll stand a real chance of maybe catching them in the remainder of the season, which is fantastic given recent weeks in the form and what have you. Probably before those 2 games they won against Wolves and Forest, so to be within a chance of catching Manchester United is brilliant, and it's going to be a massive game here on Sunday. One that I'm backing Newcastle United to win, actually. I know people are talking about revenge for the Carabao Cup final. Of course, it's always nice to get one over Manchester United. Do we want revenge for the Carabao Cup final? Yeah, we do. And I think Newcastle United have certainly got the team to beat Manchester United. It'll be interesting to see whether Marcus Rashford, who is injured, is back in time for that game. And we're walking underneath the stadium, so we'll go back on the front. Obviously, we'll look at the land that Newcastle United have bought as well, the Strawberry Place. But now we're just walking in the stadium. Often you walk down here when it's full of fans and everyone's singing. The away fans are coming out of there to the right hand side there, aren't they? I actually really enjoy walking through here on match day, especially after Newcastle United have won, because it's just really lively, and the kind of acoustics sound really well, especially when everyone's chanting and singing after Newcastle United have won. What else has been talked about with regards to Newcastle United? Jamal Lewis, we've got a few quotes from Jamal Lewis on the website. Obviously he's had a really tough time of it, hasn't he? Came big money signing from Norwich, just didn't look right, and then he's had a horrible time with the injuries of late. He's still very young, he could turn it around, but the direction Newcastle United are going to go in, possible European qualification, Has he got a future on Tyneside? Probably. I don't want to write the kid off, but you would say probably not. Everyone loves a success story. But yeah, you would probably say it's going to be a little bit hard for him to really establish himself here at Newcastle United. Dan Burn performing really well, which has left the actual left-back Matt Targett, unable to get into the first team. You would assume as well if they qualify for Europe, they might go after, a really, really top-level left-back. But obviously that's all to come in the summer. So we are just outside where the statues are at St James's Park. See Alan Shearer there and Sir Bobby over on the other side. Now, we were talking there about expansion earlier in the video of the stadium, and just going to walk down here onto the kind of the land which Newcastle United have bought back. Of course, Mike Ashley sold it. The developers have very kindly sold it back to Newcastle United, which of course has brought huge pleasure to the fan base, because it might mean eventually expansion. Like I said earlier in the video, how it happens, when it happens, is going to be for people much more qualified in terms of architecture than me. I think this road is probably a big sticking point. There's no way they can close this road because it's a major thoroughfare into the city, major thoroughfare more important to the RVI, so they can't close this road. Could they potentially build it like into a tunnel? Maybe, it's been done in other stadiums, so maybe they could build, expand the stands and allow the road to run through it. Could be one way. I don't know if that would be possible, but they certainly can't close it, can they? Because otherwise, how are you going to get to the hospital? But yeah, just to have the land here under Newcastle United ownership once again is a huge, huge boost. When Mike Ashley sold that land to developers, it was a punch in the gut for fans who lived in hope of, better years. They were hoping that one day a owner would come in at Newcastle United and want to win things and turn Newcastle into a force to be reckoned with. That's what they were hoping for. That's probably what kept driving them back to St James's Park. And then when the news broke that this land had been sold, absolutely devastating, wasn't it? It was kind of another, he doesn't really care too much about this club, But for the current owners to go out and seize the opportunity to buy back the land is absolutely massive. And whether it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years to expand the stadium, the stand behind me, right now Newcastle United fans know that this ownership mean business, because it wouldn't have been cheap to buy that land back. It would have been a pretty penny, and they went out and done it because they understand that there are 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, tens of thousands of fans who want to be here every single match day, but just can't because tickets go like that. And buying this land means that some of them will get to see their beloved Newcastle United. It won't, allow everyone in, to say the least, but a large portion of fans will be able to see their club every other weekend. And that's massive. And they also understand the benefit that those extra fans can have on a match day at Newcastle United. It's already fantastic. Just walking down here before kickoff is some feeling, and getting inside, local hero playing, Blade and Race has been sung. It's fantastic. Imagine that with an extra 15, 20,000 fans in a newly expanded stand. It's just going to be tremendous. But just to have the knowledge that at some point in the future that is a possibility is massive. It really, really is. And it's just fantastic by the owners to go out and buy that land. It's going to be a really interesting few years at St James's Park. Of course, talk about whether this bit here might turn into a farm park first of all. Of course, Darren Eales, while at Atlanta over at MLS, had a big part in the American club's rise to this kind of commercial juggernaut. So he knows all about farm parks and how important they could be. Like I say, obviously the road closes during match day. How easy it would be able to set up and then set away is another question. And the other important thing as well is that by buying that land, you would like to assume that St James's Park is going nowhere. Of course, when the takeover happened, there was a lot of debate about whether the stadium would be moved. People were talking about the land by Newcastle Arena, which of course that the arena is being built now down on the quayside, so that land will be, you would think, up for sale at some point. People pinpointed that as a potential location to move Newcastle United's home, and that would have broken the hearts of many fans, myself included, because you can't have Newcastle United anywhere else, can you? It has to be here. So to have that land here bought secures Newcastle United's future here at St James's Park. I'd like to think, it also means that there's no big tower block just there blocking the view, because one of the best views is coming over on the bridge when you're on the train, or from the Gateshead side looking at St James's Park. If the development had gone ahead, not only would it have meant no expansion, but also would have meant that the view would have been blocked. So that's another massive plus point. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the years to come and how they expand St James's Park. But that, like I say, is all to come. The big news today is that safe standing will come into play at St James's Park from next season. It's going to boost the atmosphere up a level. It's going to be fantastic. So it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like. More importantly, it's going to be really interesting to see the benefits of it. And I, for one, cannot wait to see the benefits of it next season. Hit that subscribe button on the Everything is Black and White podcast. We're going to bring you plenty of Newcastle United content over the next weeks and months. Thank you for your support so far. Andrew Musgrave here at St James's Park.